Odyssey, Dare to Wonder.
Hello and welcome to the Seventh Rule. I'm here with your stars, Aron Eisenberg, that's Nog from Deep Space Nine, Cirroc Lofton, who was Jake Sisko in Deep Space Nine. We've got super producer Jarrod Cooper, and I'm Ryan T. Husk. Today we're going to talk about Star Trek news. We're going to talk about behind-the-scenes stuff with Deep Space Nine, and a little later we are going to cover the fourth episode of Star Trek Discovery Season 2. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with the Seventh Rule.
Yes, that is how you do 4, Aaron. That's right.
I could do it that way. Or
That
I
was a
could,
good laugh
I could
at
have
the
done
end.
that, okay?
We'll be right
You're
back with the
supposed to
Seventh Rule. Welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Aron Eisenberg and Cirroc Lofton. Also Jarrod and myself, but whatever. So first off, we've got a little bit of a quick hello. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing there?
I'm feeling a little sensitive today, but I think I'll be all right. I'm a little sensitive.
Oh boy, what else is new?
No, I'm not. I'm feeling great. I'm very happy to do our show again, and it's great to have Cirroc back.
Sorry I missed you guys last week. That was a bummer, but not so much because I was in paradise. So, it was a bummer.
Not Paradise the City. Paradise.
No, paradise, the actual island paradise.
Yeah.
So it was good to get a vacation for.
You basically went to Risa.
Well, you know what? It's funny because we go on these conventions, and sometimes you feel like it's a vacation because you're in a place that's really nice to be in, but then you're also working, so it's not so much. You realize it's not a full vacation; it's just more like a work vacation. But this is the first time I had a chance to actually take a vacation in a while,
So you were there literally just for fun. There was no signing of autographs or meeting,
right,
or going on stage and talking about the show. And it's so true, because when we don't, people think, oh my God, you go all over the world. But oftentimes we're just in the hotel for literally 4 days, and then we go home, and we never really get to stay unless we pay for that extra time afterwards.
Yeah.
And,
so I remember when, for example, being in Australia and doing the New Zealand convention.
That's nice.
I wanted to stay farther. Yeah, I wanted to stay longer to see stuff and do some sightseeing. So what Aaron is describing is, if we get there on the day before the convention, that means we have that night that we check in, and the next morning your whole day is pretty much booked from 8 to 8 almost, 8 to 6, let's say.
Yeah.
So, and that includes lunch. So you barely have 30 minutes to grab a lunch sometimes. That's why they cater most of the stuff. So doing the conventions, it's great to be in different places and travel and meet the people in the different cities. But one of the things that I like to do is also sightsee and get to know the place that I'm in.
I heard that about you.
Yeah, I like to get around and be in the mix, But what have you heard?
Nothing.
Nothing.
The one time I stayed longer was in Italy. I did a convention about an hour out of Florence, and I knew. Well, obviously, I knew it was coming up, and I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty cheap. Oftentimes, I'll just go home because I got bills to pay. I got to get back to work. I got things to do, and I'll stress out. But this time, I said, screw it. I'm going to stay for 3 days, all by myself in Florence, and I paid for it. I found a really cool little hotel. It was not even a hotel. It was more like it was, but not like a Marriott, not like a chain. And it was so quaint, and it was in the middle of Florence. And then I literally just explored for 3 days. I'm not as much of a sightseer as in the I got to see all the tourist places. I'd rather just hang out and just explore the city or the countryside, wherever it might be, and just kind of enjoy the atmosphere of the place. And I don't often get to do that. I've been able to do that a few times in Germany, but Florence, oh my God, it was so beautiful. And then I got some amazing photographs from it. So
yeah. I've had the fortune to go to Italy several times. You know, my ex-wife is Italian, my daughter's Italian, so and they're from Milan. But I've also, done a lot of traveling around Venice and Rome as well. But I mean, Italy is one of the greatest. It's one of the most funnest places I've been to. I mean, there's just so much to do.
Yeah.
But when I travel, I like to go to museums
Hmm.
and check out what kind of artwork they have or whatever they're preserving in the museums. So, for example, when I was in Spain, I went to the Del Prado Museum, which is, they had some great Renaissance artwork that I got a chance to see. I also like to go to the old cathedrals in the cities. So, for
Oh,
example, when we were in Germany, I was in Cologne. They have some really nice cathedrals. In Austria, they have a cathedral called Stephanplatz, which has this really cool rusted green roof. I mean, those are the kind of, I like to look at the architecture, kind of feel the time of the time when those things were built, and also the artwork and the thing that makes the place what it is, which is
hmm.
the cobblestones, the shops, and the old familiarity of the streets, the smells. So
Smells. Yeah, the
yeah,
smells.
yeah.
I try to bring the smells home, so it's hard. I've got a few bottles though.
No, well, it's funny because sometimes I'm just walking in a random place and I'll just smell Ethiopia, for example. I'll say, "Oh, it smells like when I was in Ethiopia." And
Oh, wow.
yeah, smells just randomly can kind of
It's
trigger the
interesting
senses.
that you do say that. When we talk about visiting places, no one ever says that. No one ever says that that's part, and that's one of our senses, right? We have our
Yeah,
eyes, we have our mind, we have, what it feels like. And scent is part of that. And that's a very, that's really interesting that you say that, because you're right. Different places do bring that into it that affect your
yeah, yeah.
experience in the location. The thing
And
that I love about, oh, sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
I was just going to say that smell is the sense that we have that's most closely related to memory. So
Right, right,
that's why a lot of times you smell something and it reminds you of a place or a time or a person more than any other sense.
right.
A
And
lot of
so,
times when I'll smell like medical stuff and I'll think about all the times I was, in the hospital, it brings back that so quickly.
yeah,
So you're right. You're right.
yeah,
And the thing I loved so much about Florence was how different it was from growing up in California. The city is like, wow, it's just so vastly different to me. And it's more close to right. I think if you live in New York, maybe you have a similarity to it because the streets are narrow and you got the cobblestone streets, though not so much maybe in New York. But I just fell in love with Florence. I'd love to go back to Italy again sometime. You and I should travel together, I think.
yeah. I
I
think
think that
it would be fun to go out somewhere together. I've been out to the a convention in Italy. It wasn't in Florence. It was in Rimini,
oh,
a small city, but it actually has the oldest university in Europe is in Bologna, which is the city kind of next to it. And I went to go visit over there. Rimini is right on the sea. You get to look over it. It's just beautiful. I mean, it's a
there's two groups that do conventions in Italy, right? There's that one, and then maybe the one I went to. I think I would.
yeah. I'm not. I really don't know too much about the conventions, like who's running what. But I've had the fortune to travel to places, meet the people there, and just get to know different cultures and be at a different place. That's one of the things you mentioned was the growing up in a different place, and that kind of different experience. That you don't have to travel all the way to Italy to get a different experience. You could go to the Midwest here, and it's completely different than being in
Yeah,
California, Los Angeles.
absolutely.
So there's different places in the United States that have different vibes and different feel. Even Northern California in certain places completely have a different vibe than the Southern California, right?
Yeah, yeah,
With the
absolutely.
with the trees and the more wooded areas. But I
And
think
the snow, the
and the
cold, so
snow, the
cold.
cold, the climate, sure, yeah. But
Well, we're
you know,
spoiled in Southern California, no doubt.
Well, we've got some snow. We've got some snow going on right now in Southern California. If you just look out our windows, we can see snow in the hills right now.
I can't. All I see is Nog and Jake when I look out your window.
Yeah, I totally screwed up the intro. I should have said we're here with Cirroc Lofton and Aron Eisenberg. You know what I mean?
And this right here is why we were here so often, because I was so small and he was so tall, and this was the only way they could get us eye to eye.
Yeah.
You know, for those of you that are just listening in on the podcast, you can't see this, but in the video, in my background, I've got Jake and Nog sitting with their feet dangling on the promenade as we sew.
And I wish Aron would look at me lovingly like he did in that photo. He hasn't done that since then. That was the last time.
Get you a friend that looks like you the way Nog looked at Cirroc back then.
Well, if you could see the photo, you would actually look like I'm breaking up with him, and he's really hopeful in his eyes, and I'm just like, this isn't going to work out. This isn't going to work out.
He's like, well, maybe just weekend.
That's his first asshole move, like literally early stages of asshole developing.
It took a long time.
Look how nice and friendly I look, and he's like, you're kind of in my way, kid. This is my corner.
But darn it, there was something about me that just kept you coming back.
Yeah,
He's just such a cutie. I always wanted an orange friend.
I knew I could change you, man. I knew I can bring you over to the right side, the light side of the force. You know, you were over there on that dark side, just plotting.
And a lot of times people will comment on the development of Nog over the years, and one of the things they don't often say that I've actually realized more and more over the years was that he never would have gone in the direction he went without Jake's friendship. Without Jake's friendship, he never would have, well, I mean, you never can say never, but in theory, he never would have joined Starfleet. It's kind of interesting how that dynamic really demonstrates in a way how people from different walks of life, cultures, and friendships truly inspire people to good things. I mean, it can inspire negative, but to really support us in the positive things that we choose in our life, especially when the relationships are positive, like they demonstrated with Jake and Nog. And that doesn't get talked about. They go, oh, Nog had such a this, but the catalyst was our friendship for that.
Yeah,
and,
you know, I also look at it, Aron, like one of the things that was important about what we did was there was a lot of growth, both just who we, you know, our characters grew. It seemed like there was a maturation.
mm-hmm.
And the other characters were who they were. So Quark, episode 1 was just like Quark in the final episode. He was pretty much.
He may argue with that. When we have him on the show, you call
I'm saying certain traits, elements in his character.
Sure, I get you.
About
I
just,
get you.
You know, being tight about things, or you know how he viewed relationships may have been softened over the course because of his personal depth in getting to know people better.
Sure.
But certain things about, you know, business and money and transactions, that was who he was. You know,
You're right.
A deal is a deal. This is how I do it. But then our characters were kind of trying to find our way in life as we were growing. And so we were testing out different things. You know, do we want to do this? Is this the right way? And kind of finding ourselves and finding, you know, our way. And so we weren't so set in, okay, this guy is strict and stern, and, you know, Odo is going to just, you know, always give you the straight face and not laugh at any jokes. And here we were more willing to be pliable and whichever way it could possibly go, you know?
That's true.
So,
Ryan.
And that's why we were able to grow a lot on the show.
Yeah. What was your take on that development, Ryan? What did you think watching the show, or Jarrod? What did you guys think?
Got Will Wheaton on your shirt, by the way.
Yeah.
Shout out to Will.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I got the other Star Trek kid right there.
Shut up, Wesley. One of the famous Next Generation quotes. Shut up, Wesley.
Yep, that's the guy. For those of you that can't see, I'm wearing I don't think it's very complimentary to my eyes, but I sacrifice for the good of the show.
I was going to say that. I was like, you know, your eyes aren't popping today. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Well, what did you think, Ryan? Jarrod, what did you guys think watching that, you know, over the course of the 7 seasons?
Okay. and I know Jarrod's got an opinion on this too, but for me, I've said it before, but the best writing of any Star Trek series took place in Deep Space Nine.
Oh,
me,
really?
absolutely. No doubt about it. And probably the biggest reason for that is because you had change in the characters. Captain Picard in season 1 was the same as Captain Picard in season 7. And that's not a knock because we loved him. He was great. He was amazing. And that same thing with Kirk, same thing with Spock, that's just how it goes. Now, Sisko, yeah, I mean, he shaved his head and grew a goatee. What more do you want? But no, it's true that even and he hardened. They adjusted the writing to harden and better his character, I think. But to what you guys were saying, yes, Quark was largely the same character, but his character did have a story arc. It did have a character arc. He did definitely soften to the characters. Now, he was still the same smuggler he always was. He was still always that guy that was one step ahead of everything, but his attitude towards the people softened with that, that infamous root beer scene with Garrick, which is like the greatest scene in Star Trek history, in my opinion. But then beyond that, and there's a great story, we'll let Armin tell you about that when he comes on the show, but he told me the story one time on set about that specific scene, and it's just fascinating. It's beautiful. But beyond that, characters that were not fully developed, like Nog and Jake, they did more than just a character arc. They did a full growth right before our eyes into something completely different. And that never happened in any of the other series. And so we did have that full gamut of characters that adjusted a little bit throughout the series. And then there were some that just did a complete, blossoming or growth or maturation. Right, Jarrod?
I'll expand that. I think that what they did to some of the supporting characters wasn't only not seen in other Star Trek series, it wasn't seen in other series across the board, period.
Period, yeah.
Period. There are plenty of characters that should have been one and done. I mean, it's the equivalent of
one and done.
I mean, they would have had their one episode and it would have been done.
Yeah.
I mean, I would equate it to the paramedics on ER. The people that came in every week and it was just a different person.
Oh, right.
You would have never seen them given development. Whereas on Deep Space Nine, it would have been the same person and they would have gone that extra mile to make sure that person was involved.
Case in point of that is Gul Damar. Is Damar, who came in originally, he was just a lieutenant with a couple lines just to bounce lines off of Dukat, just to give somebody that Dukat can basically talk to in his scenes back there. And then when they need another guy, they brought him back. And then suddenly he's got this big, beefy, juicy role as part of the whole I mean, he was another one of those characters that just had this huge development.
Yeah, we should get Casey on the show. I just thought of that. We should ask Casey to come on our show. I would love to chat with him. Yeah, that's true. And remember, our show was set up much differently. They had to bring the stories to the show as well. And because the regulars, the cast, the crew were on a station. So the stories had to come to them. So they had to fill that up with
not to get into the new show too early, but one of the things that I see is that visually they're probably the best show I've ever seen as far as
beautiful
special effects. It's visually, you can't get better than that now. It looks real.
That's how I felt when I watched the original series, but this one really blows me away.
yeah, right. No, the original series was real for its time, for what it had. It was
true.
using what it had. But one of the things that I look at when I see the show is it's so visually colorful. The set is so like silky smooth. It's like it looks like Apple design, like a design,
I was just going to say that, like a futuristic Apple store.
Yeah, it looks like an Apple store. I mean, the way the floors look, the way the consoles and everything looks, the corridors. I mean, it's stunning visually.
Slick.
I
like a Ferrari in space.
even the details on the costumes, for example, there's very small details on the costumes, the way the collars fold up and down a little bit here, a little there.
Mhm.
They're very small things, but it just for the eye, it's very pleasing. So I don't think they can get better as far as visually what they're producing right now. I think it's literally movie quality level.
Mhm.
Well, I was just looking at it a little. Well, I didn't read the whole article, but Alan Kurtzman's goal was to really make it as film-like as he possibly can, and they specifically chose a camera. Oh my God, I'm totally blanking on what it's called.
Cinematography.
Yeah, the cinematography and the frame and what they're setting up. I think I'll have to look it up, and then when we talk about Discovery, I'll bring it back up.
Okay.
But and they have done a fabulous job on it.
I mean, the visual effects, everything. These guys should definitely like be winning Emmys for visual effects because I don't think you can get better than that.
Alex, and I said,
I think the production design and the music are also just A+ work. Just A+ work.
A+ work. So as far as the quality of the visual, I don't, they're knocking it out of the park. They're really setting a quality high standard for Star Trek, being sleek, sophisticated, futuristic, and stylish. I like all of that.
And for the people that complain every month about, you have to pay $10, I always tell them it's like going and getting a movie ticket. If this was a cinematic experience,
that's a good point.
If it was a cinematic experience, you'd be paying $15, $20 to go see it.
I wish I could get a movie ticket for $10.
Yeah, really.
Let me know what movie theater you're going to.
No, you can. Tuesday nights. Tuesday nights at Regal.
Yeah, you got to be a 50, 65 and over.
Other theater chains are available.
Okay.
This has been Get Off My Lawn with Cirroc Lofton.
Get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn. No, but I think they're definitely producing a high quality television show, and you can see that it's reflected. There's certain things you can argue the different aspects of whatever contextually what you like or don't like. For example, storylines or the actual dialogue, and we'll get into that later. But for the most part, I can't really find any criticism on the visuals, the graphics, the special effects. It looks amazing.
Although I will ask this, and then
the makeup. I mean, the aliens look legit.
Well, we'll talk about on Discovery. I have one comment on that when we get to it. But one of the things, it was Alex, and I think I said Alan Kurtzman, but he's in the article, he says he's in love with anamorphic frame, and they changed it to 2.40 to 1 aspect ratio. And I think that he's really pushing the bar higher and higher to, excellent cinematography for TV, to blur the lines between TV and film, which I think is fantastic.
I think so too.
Yeah.
So this aspect ratio, what does it do for the listeners and for myself? A little education. What does that do to enhance you as a photographer, Aron? What does it do for the quality of the image?
What does it do for me?
Yeah, no. Yeah, what does it do? What are the results of changing the aspect of the ratio to what you said?
That's a good question. I wouldn't know how to answer that. I'm not that knowledgeable about the difference that they do. That's something I've always wanted to learn.
So it's
more
a
and
depth
more.
perception issue. Is it a width? Is it a width ratio?
It's more of a widthy, what's in frame.
Yeah.
Wider. Okay.
Yeah. They can show more, give you more in it, I believe.
Right.
Yeah. And
because it does feel big. Like, for example, it feels like they're in a huge space station, and it feels wide and spacious. I don't know
without it being like a fisheye and it's warped.
Right.
That's probably
Right.
Yeah.
Where are they filming that? Do you know?
Toronto.
It's in Toronto.
Yeah.
All of it's in Toronto, but as a fun segue there, I believe the new Picard series will be shot in LA, which is great news for all of us here in LA.
Yeah.
And also, speaking of the Picard series, you're going to get a lot more of that high quality film production with the Picard series, because Alex Kurtzman has flat out said it's going to feel like a 10-hour movie. It's going to be 10 episodes, and it's going to feel like you're watching a 10-hour movie. Or maybe it was Patrick Stewart that said it. One of those important people.
I just hope I can feel it on the set.
Yes.
Yes.
Is the world ready for Captain Nog? I think so.
Yes, of course.
I think so. Yeah, we're ready.
Let's go to a break, and then we'll find out what you guys think. I think Cirroc's going to say no, but we'll see.
No.
All right, we'll
right
be right back to get Cirroc's answer and Aaron's angry response to that. We'll be right back with the 7th rule.
Odyssey. Dare to wonder.
When will your adventure begin? Join the human adventure and become part of a mission to traverse to the skies, bringing the unity of our work to places in need all over the world. The Federation has long been revered as an agent of protection, for truth, and for the betterment of humankind. That's why right now, you can help the Federation more than ever. With your donations, you can help our humanitarian missions, and you can help our disaster response units. In a world where political discourse has left a void in our world's ability to help hurricane and other natural disaster victims, it's the role of the Federation to stand tall and make a difference. Shop the Federation Promenade and make your donation at trekfederation.com today.
Hello, and welcome back to the 7th rule with your stars, Aron Eisenberg and Cirroc Lofton.
Whoa, whoa.
Also, Jarrod Cooper and Ryan T. Husk.
Yeah,
whatever. So we want to pick up where we left off. By the way, we will be answering questions from our fans a little later. But first, Aron, this is a subject I know you hate talking about.
Can't believe we're talking about it.
You shudder. You never bring it up. But what do you think about the possibility of Captain Nog?
Well, I mean, honestly, I would love to reprise the role of Nog in that capacity, or even somewhere close to that capacity. As Cirroc was mentioning earlier in DS9, how both his character and mine had a growth over the show, not just a development, but a whole growth. You know, it would be really great to finish that trajectory with Nog moving up even further into the captain role. We never really see somebody really grow all the way through that process from a lowly lowly thief on a station to now, you know, a step away from becoming captain of his own starship. Or what kind of captain would Nog be with the influences of his life, especially his mentor Sisko? And what, in my opinion, what better way to connect the Star Trek universe to the present Star Trek shows without it being too on the nose and having a great story to tell. My only fear is that they would choose that but hire a different actor. That would be quite a horrific shame. And truthfully, I mean, I truly loved the character, and I loved playing him and the stories that I got to tell. And it's hard for me to have that end. For me, I want to keep telling those stories, and I want to keep reading that book, because every script to me was that book, and I would find out what was going on with that character, and then it just ends. You're like, oh, come on, I want to know more. I want to tell that story more. I want to go on that journey, because that's how much fun I had doing it. So I would love to.
I see a future more in like the number 1 position for Nog, you know, playing that number 1 role, you know, the number one.
Why is that?
Because I would see him still having to work a little bit harder to get up to captain role right now. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if you just started and entered him into a hypothetical new show, or the Picard show or any other show, that he would still be at the level where he has to earn his captainhood. And that would be something that I would show. Like, what would he do? What does he do? How does he make it to be captain?
Yeah.
You know, instead of just having him just, boom, now last time you saw him, he was here, and now, boom, he's the captain. I would kind of have him like, well, he's there, he's present, but he's also going to do something or make his presence felt in a way that would deserve him being elevated to captain.
I think that's a great idea. Sorry, Ryan, you were going to say something. I agree with you, Cirroc. That would be a lot of fun to continue the steps, not just okay, now we're done. That's what, and for me as an actor, that was what was so enjoyable to play. It wasn't just spouting off technobabble. Oh, phasers are locked and ready, sir. There was a journey, and that for me was the joy of acting. Telling those stories, growing. You were going to say something though, Ryan, I think.
Yeah, it's not the destination, it's the journey, right? But yeah, I think you guys are absolutely right. There's a much bigger payoff if the audience gets to see the growth rather than see the result, rather than, hey, now it's captain.
I'd feel kind of bad for him, though, because they've already said the Picard series is 19 years later. So Nog would have spent like 19 years. He's still not captain. He's still working on it all these 19, 20 years later.
There are a lot of them that are like, 60, 70, 80 years old, and they're just lieutenants, at least there'd be some growth there. Until now.
You could even show, Jarrod, you could show a storyline about that. There may have been a decision he made that was questionable back in those time. And then, where it was like a borderline gray area decision. He saved somebody's life, but somebody died or something like that. And because he broke protocol and didn't follow orders, but he did it for a better reason. He was, punished for it. There's a whole way to explain that.
He probably traded a starship for a Romulan shuttlecraft. And somebody didn't like that because it was that captain's ship. And he's like, it was going to work.
Yeah, something like that. So, you can't just steal the Defiant and go for, shooting up asteroids.
Exactly. You have to stop taking our ships and getting blood wine for Martok. He has enough.
You can't impress your dates with the new starships. Hey, baby, ever seen one of these before?
Speaking of the Defiant, probably the character we've seen the most growth from until now was Worf, right? He started off as like the guy that just kind of sits in the corner of the bridge and really doesn't have a place or a purpose. And then when Tasha Yar died, he became the security chief, and then he went from junior grade to lieutenant commander. Then he went over to Deep Space Nine and became practically a superhero, and everybody thought he was incredible.
Yeah.
So we love that.
Actually, I have to say that as much Klingon stuff they have on the new show, it's kind of it kind of doesn't make sense to not have Worf do a cameo.
We gotta ask Michael Dorn.
Yeah.
We got to ask Michael Dorn if they call him up to work on Discovery, if he's going to be like one of those new, just like a completely different Klingon looking like those Discovery ones.
General look differently than he did.
Well, General Worf would still be alive.
He would be, right?
The one that he played in Star Trek VI, the lawyer.
The Klingons live 150 years or so, right? Is that what
he'd still be alive, yeah.
Yeah, so he'd still be alive.
He'd still be alive, yeah. One of the things I was disappointed with on our show was that I actually thought Nog and Worf would start to bond as two very generally enemies of the Federation, bridging the gap by both of them coming into Starfleet and taking a new path for each culture. And that him being the first Klingon and me being the first Ferengi, I thought there would be some amount of bonding in that, or some kind of character development between the two, which they never took in. They didn't go anywhere with that. I always wondered why they didn't. Maybe they thought it'd be too on the nose, so they paired me with Maura O'Brien as somebody that I kind of followed along with, to some degree. And then really kept my relationship with Jake going. But I always thought they were going to do that, and they never did. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Did we lose Cirroc?
Yeah, I think so. So
I just think it's interesting that we're sitting here having this conversation about Worf and character development and this, that, and the other. And originally, Roddenberry didn't want him to do anything but stand on the bridge. They didn't.
Oh, really?
He didn't want any character episodes of focusing around Worf at all, because he didn't think anybody would care. Why are we following the Klingon? He's not human. He's not that.
Really?
Yeah.
That just goes to show you that not everybody. That's why sometimes I think having more than one person helps grow something. If we only adhered to that, how many wonderful stories would we have lost in that?
Half of them, especially on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
Ron Moore talks about it when he was writing the whole redemption arc from Next Generation for Worf and this, that, and the other, that they really didn't care about the family honor thing.
Right.
Didn't care at all. Roddenberry wanted no part of it.
Wow. Interesting. And they went to so much character development on DS9, which maybe that's why a lot of people were opposed to DS9 at the beginning, because it was really going away from what Roddenberry wanted. But just because he wanted that doesn't mean that was the strongest choice either, Right. At some point, you got to say, no, it is about characters. We're all about our connections to others, and we're better for it. We're better for different cultures coming together and learning how to move forward and seek out new life and civilization and become with it, one with it, and grow because of that, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, Roddenberry definitely started something amazing. He definitely planted the seed, but it definitely took more minds and more writers to really expand it into what Star Trek is today. I mean, he died in 1990? That was the third season of Next Generation. So everything after the third season of Next Generation is without him. And really the first season or two just kind of felt like an extension of the original series. And it wasn't until the third-ish season that it really got its own voice.
It was really the end of The Best of Both Worlds Part 1. When you're standing there and you've got Locutus on the screen and you've got Riker saying fire and the entire world exploded that summer.
And Commander Shelby was
Shelby.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Such a great.
We can hear you.
Back.
All right, I'm back on audio.
That's fine.
Okay. Better the audio than nothing. What happened?
I don't know. I just
the hot spot's not so hot anymore, huh?
Not that hot. It's raining out here.
Yeah. We get a lot of rain down here in LA, and by a lot I mean not a lot.
Well, lately though, it's been doing pretty good.
And it's going to be raining like the next 5 days too. So
is it?
Yeah.
Oh man,
it's going to be great. It's beautiful. We love it. So we've got a few minutes left. Let's go on to some of our fans' questions. Because we've got a couple here, some really good questions by some really awesome fans, I'm guessing. The first one is from Homer Frizzell. We all know Homer Frizzell with the coolest name.
Homer!
He says, could you tell us some stories of directors who were difficult to work with? Now, if you guys don't want to answer, if you got some, let us know. Otherwise,
Michael Dorn. Pain in the ass.
You beat me to it because I was going to say the same. No. No, there wasn't really. I didn't have too much pain in the ass directors. There was a couple of guys. Les hated us, so he hated us.
I don't think he hated us. He just couldn't wait to get out of that scene. That's all.
I think we made him hate all children.
So what Cirroc is referring to is the infamous stem bolt scene. Self-sealing stem bolt. That took me 19 takes. Took us, because he screwed up too.
I screwed up.
Remember, Cirroc messes up in this also. It's not just me.
No, I messed up. I'll take my credit. I only had one line to deliver.
Even at 25 years plus, we still find humor in this situation.
But I swear Les pulled out half his hair out of that day.
Yeah, he started looking like Picard Yeah, he was cringing in his seat. So Les Landau was the director of I think the episode was Progress, and I had a line, and it was, "I know who can tell us what self-sealing stem bolts are." And mind you, I have teeth in my mouth. It's already a difficult line to say without extra prosthetics, I should say. Of course, I have teeth in my mouth. I had prosthetic teeth in my mouth. And I have to say this line, and I'm thinking to myself, did the writers do this on purpose, or did they really not pay attention to all the concepts? So I have the line down here in my brain, but I just can't articulate.
It's a tongue twister.
It was. And it was, wait, I know who can tell us what self-sealing stem bolts are. And now,
you got to do it in the Nog voice, Aaron.
I don't have my teeth. I need my teeth.
Yeah, that was pretty close.
A little bit. So we'd start the scene and be like, wait, I know who can tell us what self-sealing. Yeah. Okay, it's all right. I got it, Les. I got it. And he's like, yeah, no worries. One take one.
No worries.
And Cirroc is, at that time he was a lot nicer of an individual. So he was like, oh, it's all good, man. It's all good. Here we go. Take two. And the way it was shot was
that implies that I'm a jerk right now, guys, just for the record.
so the camera was set in front of us, kind of looking up, and it kind of dollies to the right as we do the whole scene. So it's not like it was just a single on me, and all they had to get.
Yeah, the camera has to move. Yeah, the camera has to move while we're walking.
So, well, no, I don't think we were walking. We were behind a counter.
A counter, yeah. And they kind of reveal us. Yeah, they reveal us.
I still have nightmares. So we have to do really the whole scene from beginning to end. We can't, and I don't think there's going to be coverage. Meaning if they do a wide shot, then they go for singles.
They can edit around it. Then basically they can edit around a flub line.
And so all he wanted to do was get this done quick. Wait, I know who can tell us what's we do, and we're out. Well, it wasn't very quick. And in TV, quick is important because the longer it takes.
Usually it takes around four or five takes average, guys. 4 or 5 is the average for professional actors on the set doing a scene.
And they should have hired a professional actor to play Nog, but unfortunately they hired me. So I start at take 10. We're at take 10. Wait, I know who can tell us what self-stealing stuff. Take 11. Wait, I know who can tell us what self-sealing stumbles are.
Now, mind you, everybody, we're laughing at this point because we're just, we just think it's funny that we can't get it right because it's just so simple. But yet, it's funny, and no one else is laughing.
No one is laughing, and Les Landau is most definitely not laughing. So we get to take 12, and I say the line correctly.
He nails it. He nails it, and I'm looking at him just like dumbfounded that he finally got it right. So I didn't even remember that I have to say something.
No,
I was just waiting.
And I remember sitting there like in my Nog hunched over.
Pose in your pose with your hands up.
Yeah, going like say the fucking line.
So we can print it. I finally got it right, and you don't know your line.
So he didn't get, and I think he had to say who. That's all he had to say. Wait,
so
I know
what? I had to say what?
Stem bolts are. Who?
Who?
That's it. And he couldn't get it. So we went for another 7 more takes. Take 19.
19 takes, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, 19 takes.
So we burned a lot of Paramount money during that day, guys. Just for the record. That's why.
I even remember seeing him. It's funny how images stay in your mind throughout years of doing something. I remember seeing him just his hand on his head like this going, oh my God, get me out of here, please. They say never work with kids and dogs.
That's what he was saying. He was like, fucking kids.
And I said, I'm an adult. I'm 23 years old. Fuck you. Okay, I didn't say F you to Ross.
But you thought it.
I did think it. To be honest, I thought I was never going to come back after that. I felt so bad. I just could not say it. I could not say
You know what? I don't know if the listeners out there or the viewers out there have heard this story, but one time we decided to take a walk, Aaron and I, over to Next Generation to visit the set. And we get over there.
Voyager.
Was it Voyager?
Yeah,
right across.
Same thing.
Yeah. It was Voyager. It was right next to it. So their downstage was right across from Mars, and they had a fresh delivery of hot wings that were out on display, for the cast and crew. So we walk on for Voyager. So we're walking on Voyager. We see a hot wing sitting there. And me and Aaron say, fuck this, they got hot wings. Damn, they don't give us hot wings. So we get a plate of hot wings, and we're each walking out of the soundstage eating a plate of hot wings. And we get back to our set, everybody's, hey, where'd you get that from? Over in Voyager. Well, next thing you know, they fucking issue a letter to everybody saying nobody from Deep Space Nine can go over to the craft service table at Voyager because Aaron and Cirroc are eating all the fucking hot wings. I'm like, gee, how many hot wings did we have there? It wasn't that many. It wasn't
we had as much as we could get, my friend.
Well, did you tell them, look, if you guys have hot wings on our set, we don't have to go over there.
Yeah, and that's what they told us.
I put my hands up and I said, prove that I took the hot wings. Prove it.
They're orange already.
Exactly. Ferengi, we can steal hot wings, Cheetos, all that stuff. Nobody will know it's us.
Yay.
Well, we've only got a minute or two left in this segment before we move on into the discovery portion. But we do have one more question we want to answer from Mr. Dave Johnson. Mr. Dave Johnson says, Star Trek and technological advances go hand in hand. Tricorders, pads, biobeds, etc. What Star Trek tech would you predict or hope is developed or made real in our near future? That's a great question.
So that's a great question.
That's a fantastic question.
Yeah. Well, I've been around some interesting tech people here in LA, being, one of the tech capitals of the world. So I get to see a lot of stuff from my friends at different places like SpaceX or whatnot. And I know that, for example, the Hewlett-Packard, if I'm not mistaken, put together a $5 million prize for the X Prize for, who was that?
No, I'm sorry. You go. I should have. I know it flips over. Go ahead.
Actually, it might have been Qualcomm. I'm not sure, but there was a $5 million prize for somebody inventing a tricorder that basically reads medical signs.
That was Qualcomm.
Yeah,
Qualcomm, right? So they are already developing these kinds of things. But what I would like to see done, and I know that is, they are also researching this technology, and that is rematerializing atomic matter and restructuring it in another place, essentially beaming things.
Transporting.
And transporting. So, basically, rematerializing something somewhere else. And I think that will actually be something that will be invented at one point or another.
We should have another show where we talk about the philosophies and the ethics of new technology. It was something my friend and I were chatting about last night, that we never really actually consider how technology, like a transporter, could, in theory, truly affect our world economically and socially. We already see it with our phones, but imagine if we all had the ability to transport somewhere. Oil, cars, all transportation would be obsolete, right? Which is a whole industry of jobs and income. But I know we don't have much time to answer this question, and I think we should have that conversation on another show, because that would be really fun to talk about the different ideas and ethics. Even so much for me, in the sense of being able to clone a kidney as a transplant recipient. What are the ethics if we can just go to a lab, take my DNA, make me a kidney, pop it back in? Now I don't need immunosuppression. They can. What you just said is already, it exists. It's, they're working on it. I don't know if it.
No, they're not working on it. They can grow different arteries and different biological matter in its own test tube, essentially.
There's been a decades-long discussion about the transporter in particular, a big ethical, philosophical quandary on does it kill the person when they beam? The person that gets beamed, does that person die?
Right.
Yeah.
And that would go down to what scientists have not discovered, which is the soul. And there's no location of the soul. They don't know how exactly we exist. So just because it's particulate matter and we're talking about atoms and molecules and restructuring them, you don't know that you can get the soul of the person to be rematerialized. So most of the things that,
Oh, sorry. But you could argue that the spirit and soul is within the atoms and the molecules, that it's one and the same.
We don't know that for sure, though, but I think eventually they'll figure that out by obviously starting with trying to rematerialize non-life forms, things that are inanimate.
We have to have this show again and maybe bring a scientist on and talk about some of these things in an ethical and philosophical way, because it's a great conversation.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Thanks, Dave Johnson, for that one. That can go a whole lot of ways.
So
yeah, I agree. That's a good show for its own entire show there. But we don't need a scientist. Let's just have a bunch of actors and nerds just talking about what.
I played a scientist on TV.
But it's fun to have a scientist in here and hear the actual stuff that maybe is possible or is happening based on technology and science that's being found, like nanotechnology, things like that. But to answer Dave's question, I would love to see, before things that are convenient, is things that would really change our world and go into what Hawking said, that in order for our survival, we have to get off this rock. So if we could actually figure out a warp drive or the ability to travel light years without the effect of, becoming, 40 years older, or whatever it might be, the number translation in traveling, space travel is probably the biggest need we would have ultimately for our survival to move on. So what technology can lead us to that? That's really what we should find first, in my opinion.
And everybody knows Sir Stephen Hawking is the only person to have ever played himself in any Star Trek series or movie.
That's not true. I played Nog. I am Nog.
All right, guys, well, we've got to go to one more break. For those of you that do not want any Star Trek Discovery spoilers,
get out
and come back. Yeah, get out of the pool, or come back at the end, or just tune us in next week. For those of you that do want to listen and discuss about Discovery, stay tuned, and we will be right back with Magnum PI.
Odyssey.
Oh my God, it's full of stars.
When will your adventure begin? Join the Federation and become part of a mission to traverse to the skies, bringing the unity of our work to places in need all over the world. The Federation has long been revered as an agent of protection for truth and for the betterment of humankind. That's why right now you can help the Federation more than ever before. With your donations, you can help our humanitarian missions and you can help our disaster response units. In a world where political discourse has left a void in our world's ability to help hurricane and other natural disaster victims, it's the role of the Federation to stand tall and make a difference. Shop the Federation Promenade and make your donation at trekfederation.com today.
Hello and welcome back to the Seventh Rule with your stars, Aron Eisenberg and Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
They were Jake and Nog on Deep Space Nine. And now we're going to talk about Star Trek Discovery. For those of you that have seen Star Trek Discovery and want to hear us discuss it, or those of you that haven't and don't care about spoilers, check this out. Aron Eisenberg, what did you think of episode 4, season 2?
Well, I actually liked it better rewatching it again today than I did the first time. I was starting to feel like I'm missing the adventure that I felt we had in the first season, but they are getting closer to having a one-show problem that they have to solve, and then telling the stories that are going to be the throughput through the whole series in the adventure of that particular story, which they did again today with the entity that was dying. So in the second watching of it, I enjoyed it more. But I have to admit that I really loved season 1 and how I felt like it was just off and running all the way through. But I know a lot of the fans' criticism was they wanted kind of how Trek was before, where it had a certain
Storyline?
Yeah, problem that they were dealing with in that specific episode. So if you mix the two groups of fans, me and maybe them as well, I think they're doing a very good job of bringing them both together. So I don't think it's fair of me to complain about that aspect upon the second showing. First one I was going to say, yeah, I'm ready to go off and running, and I want to get to Spock, and I want to see where these lights are and all of this and the conflict that's going to bring. And I feel like I keep getting little doses of it, but I'm not getting the adventure I want yet. But that's okay. I think that I actually enjoyed the show very much. And the biggest thing I enjoyed, and I'll end with this, was I love how they keep answering loopholes with 1 or 2 lines in the mix of moving from one point to the next point. So if you're not listening at that very beginning, you miss it. And if you complain about it, they can say, oh, yeah, we answered that over there. And you're like, oh, darn it.
Yeah.
I should have been listening a little bit better. And they did it with the Enterprise. You know, the Enterprise is a hoopty compared to the Discovery, which is the Ferrari. And it's because Pike's like, yeah, I don't want that back camera. I don't want automatic locking doors. I don't want the hologram. I want to be able to do it old school. And so it's kind of fun how they're answering those questions.
I see. Yeah, you know, one of the things that I think is kind of a discredit to the new cast members is that they are focusing a lot on this Spock stuff. And it feels like they're bringing all that in to like bring in older fans of the original show and people, you know, who doesn't like Spock and who doesn't like the Pike narratives. And I feel like it's a little bit too cliche-ish to try to reintroduce these characters now with this new cast, and it doesn't give them a chance to kind of define themselves as their own show.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that in that way, you know, the Spock storyline is not the greatest thing that I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm.
I like the different characters having their own thing, but now they're tying these characters into older characters. So, you know, with Michael being Spock's sister and all of this kind of tie-ins, trying to, you know, give more, let's say, congruency to the older Star Trek franchises.
Mm-hmm.
But Star Trek has always like brought in things from other shows, so they're being consistent in that way. You know, even with DS9, we did the Tribble episode. We did a lot of references to the Next Generation, and there were a lot of tie-in things. You know, so I see that on this show. But I like to talk about the show in other ways.
Okay.
I think it's easy to kind of just pick apart, you know, scenes that I don't like, or, you know, characters that I think are overly developed, or storylines that I'm not particularly interested in. Because that's easy. That's a matter of taste, you know?
Yeah, it's very easy and very, very easy.
Yeah, and it's a matter of taste. But like, for example, Tilly's character, she's always going through like something, You know, it feels
Yeah.
like she's like it's like she's getting a fungus. She's getting something wrapped around her. You know, she's seeing. It's like she's like, let's let something bad happen to her. You know what I mean? And,
Yeah, she's like the Eeyore, or there's always some problem going on.
yeah. So,
She's the O'Brien.
yeah, so I think that was kind of crazy. I think one of the issues that they touched on, and this is where I like to look behind the story and kind of dissect other things. This is what makes Star Trek interesting to me, is that there's so many layers behind things. For example, the title of the episode is called An Obol for Charon, right?
Right.
Which is great.
And which is Greek, right? And it's referring to the coin that they place in deceased people's mouths. And so the coin was supposed to pay passage to Charon, who was like this Greek god of escorting you from the
Across
life
the
to
river
the afterlife.
Yep.
Right. So that's not arbitrarily picked for a name. And
Right.
I like to look into the mentality of the writers and why they pick these kinds of things as symbolism, and why are they trying to, you know, what's the significance of referring to this Greek coin, this custom, this tradition of afterlife, and
Right.
then who is the person that's transitioning from life to death that they are referring to. And so I guess what they were in this particular episode was this giant red energy ball that was
Right.
like consumed sensation, right? That was dying, right?
Mhm.
Going from this life to death. So I
Mhm.
think that was the symbol, and that was where they referenced the Greek theme.
And what do you think was the coin?
The coin, that particular Obol, is a gold coin from the 1st to 5th century AD. So,
Oh no, but I mean, in this episode, what do you think the coin was then for the red?
the coin, I think the Kelpian, Saru's character.
Oh, I thought it was all the information they got for the 100,000s of years prior. That's what I thought the payment was given by the entity that was dying. That was the Obol. Am I saying that correctly?
Obol, yeah.
Yeah, that was the Obol from the dying life. I will give this as my payment to get across the river Styx, if you will. That now the Federation has at their disposal. And I think in that information, you know, it says 100,000 years back, right? But what if it's not linear? And in that is Captain Nog. Just throwing that out.
Just putting it out there.
Of course, yeah. You know, to Cirroc's point, I got to be honest, I don't even need one droplet of Spock in this entire storyline. I don't need
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not wanting for him. I'm not missing him. I'm not hoping or
Yeah.
waiting, because
Yeah,
we've had years and years and years and reboots done.
exactly. They did
Everything's
movies.
fine
They did
without-
like 10 movies. They did 10 movies with the search for Spock, the this for Spock. And
Sure,
I'm like,
sure.
I've been, you know, and the new franchise, the J.J. Abrams thing was Spock and, you know, and Kirk
That's right.
again. And I'm thinking, well, how much are they going to keep juicing out the Spock Kirk narrative?
Well, maybe
You know?
maybe Tarantino's movie will be, you know, Star Trek X. We're done with Spock. You know.
Yeah, right. Well, now
I
on the
don't
other-
think you have to.
the other
It doesn't
side
have
of
to be like. It doesn't have to be like that drastic where we're done with Spock. But to me, it's like you're doing a disservice. You have a brand new show. You have brand new cast members, and they have to now kind of give up something to now be pushing this Spock thing. And I don't see why they're not able to stand alone as individual characters that are worthy of, you know, the screen. I think Michael is easily the star of that show, and she should be the captain of the show. I don't know why they're going around the bow with these three
Well,
captains already.
Well,
You know,
yeah,
I
I
don't
think she's
understand.
got a hard road to be captain based on the first season and what had happened, and she's kind of to your point, what you said about Nog, if he came back, having to do something really bad to earn it. I think she's in that position, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Based on her.
yeah, I think so too. But then you don't need the Spock. I don't need the Spock storyline. Her being Spock's sister, and they were raised together. I don't need that to give her depth. She's already eating up the camera and like being amazing on film.
Well,
So
I actually don't quite agree with the two of you. I don't know how Jarrod feels, and I'm sure he wants to throw his 2 cents in. I don't mind the Spock storyline. I am concerned that they just keep talking about it, and then I feel like they're going to get to it, and then they're going to rush through it. So I do kind of feel like now you've whet my appetite. You're trying to tell me a story, but we just keep talking about the problem instead of getting to the problem and the conflict. And we're doing it, again, my same complaint from the last one, throwing too many stories in. And now you've got Tilly, and you're right. I feel like if Tilly's on the road to be a captain, and she's got to have some successes also. She's got to have a little bit more confidence growth. She's always so unsure, it feels like.
Yeah.
Ability and
And the victim of something, or being, it's like always victimized by some tragic random thing,
I thought pea soup was going to fly out of her mouth in this episode.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't they drill her head in the end of it, or like it was?
Yep.
They put a drill to her head and started singing a weird song, and I was thinking to myself, why does everything bad happen to this girl?
Karma, I guess.
You got a drill on her head.
Before we get to that, I want to make 2 quick points about Spock, though, is that number one, to Aaron's point, they say that the most boring thing in screenwriting is 2 people in a scene talking about a third person.
Who's not in the scene.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing is I do want to point out the opposite, that the converse side of that is that I do absolutely love and appreciate and want more of Pike and number 1, though, because those characters were never fully fleshed out. So just because I don't need or care about Spock
doesn't mean I don't like Pike. I like Pike. Yeah,
I'm very much interested in knowing about number 1 and about Pike and about the new characters. And those of you that are watching on video, you can see my background it has the new characters in here, and that's deliberate because that's part of what I think made episode 4 of season 2 quite possibly the best episode, in my opinion, is because we're getting an expansion of characters, and we're getting pockets of characters. You have the 3 talking in engineering. You have, the 3 or 4 talking in the medical bay. You have the bridge officers all on their own, talking in their little bridge quarters beforehand. And I really like that, because
it's starting to culminate and get a feel for like everybody has a role to play, and you're getting development of the characters for sure. There was a lot of the scenes with the Klingon, which I obviously have told you before. I don't like too much Klingon scenes, but she has the baby, and she wants to be known as mother in that episode, and that scene, that stuff was starting to develop those characters. I see them having development, and I can see that the role's going to expand, for her part, and whatever, she's going to be leader of the chancellor of the Klingons. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I think that we still haven't talked about the fact that they were speaking different languages, which is a reference to the Tower of Babel, another reference point that the writers are using biblical or ancient mythology.
To the DS9 episode.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. These writers are very knowledgeable about the whole entire universe of Star Trek, all the alien characters. It's clear that they have a knowledge of it because they've introduced some of the characters and themes from older episodes and across the spectrum of Star Trek. But just the idea of the Tower of Babel is once again borrowing from the Christian mythology, and I just want to highlight how much mythology is always borrowed from the Greek and Christian mythology and Judaism. So there's a lot of things that are implanted, and I just want to make sure that we highlight them because they shouldn't really go unnoticed. They actually have meaning.
Right. Yeah,
You know?
and I had a note about that too. That I liked, I liked that they brought that in, and I was wondering, was that an homage to DS9's episode of Babel? Or as Melissa had pointed out, was it
Who's Melissa, for those of us that don't know?
Who's Melissa? She is actually
His better half. His better half. That's who.
that's right, my better half.
Yeah.
She said that it actually, and the whole thing with Tilly being lost in that blob, and I had an issue with hearing the other girl's voice through her voice. I didn't feel like we needed to hear her voice. She could have absolutely changed the way she delivered the lines, and we would have known it was the entity talking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're more intelligent than that because.
But they've done that before
entity
on
wouldn't be able to
they've done that before.
What's
It's
that?
been done before. They've done a voice alteration on Star Trek before, so that's again keeping in tradition with the theme that they've already set in place. There have been other characters possessed.
Oh, she was hinting that it was like an X-Files episode, field trip. That's what it was. So I'd have to go back and watch that X-Files episode.
Well, that's another thing I wrote down in my notes, Aaron, was the idea of ghosts. So they're talking about ghosts. They're talking about the episode before that in Point of Light. They were talking about the Red Angel more and the people that were saved after World War III. So they're talking about religion. They're talking about spiritual, supernatural things like ghosts. They're also talking about, which I think is really crazy, fungi, viruses, and like fungi and viruses. Basically, they're using a spore drive for their engine, right?
Right.
Which is like faster than warp or something. It's more powerful than warp. But it's called a spore drive. And, spores are in the fungi realm of family.
Yeah.
She gets consumed by a blob, which is like a fungi. The whole ship is consumed by an energy that infects people with this virus that changes their voice, changes their language. And so they're using viruses, bacteria, and fungi. And that's another kind of thing I would talk about in the sense of really how biologically they're going into more natural biological sciences in the Star Trek world.
Well, they're most definitely blending all of them and asking good questions. I think within the stories, and I hope that we probably will never find an answer. I'm assuming because it's going to be different for all people, and maybe the ultimate answer is they're all connected.
I think the answers are more questions, and that's how we continue to progress. We ask more questions. So for example, I was looking up spores, and I was looking up the Obol of Charon, and so we ask more questions. We dig more dirt, and we kind of put together our own kind of analysis of the information to see how we try to arrive to what somebody else was thinking. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Cool. That's good stuff, man. Good stuff.
But I do want to say, I also want to add real quickly, I think the best thing that they have going for them right now is the Section 31 plot line that Ira was talking about. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that in itself could be an entire Star Trek series.
It's going to be. It's going to be.
With Michelle Yeoh, she's going to be starring in it.
Yeah,
with Nog. With Nog.
See, now Nog should go into Section 31 as an undercover captain. And now we're talking. See, I just did you a favor right there.
Flying.
You see what I mean? But
I hear you, my friend. I hear you.
I like the Section 31 stuff. The Red Angel stuff reminds me also of biblical stuff because obviously they had, stained glass windows and they were hiding underneath the church. So they were making that a very obvious. It doesn't take a genius to put that together. But
I was able to put that together.
You even put that together. Okay, great. On the second watch.
When you were talking about Tilly with the voice coming through her, I thought for sure somebody was going to say, there is no Tilly, only Zool. But actually, Aaron and I were talking a couple days ago when we watched the episode, and we nitpick things. Again, I think that this is quite possibly the best episode so far in the series.
Oh, really?
But I still will nitpick the hell out of it. I mean, I love seeing all the the development of the new characters. Like I love Lieutenant Non. I love to see more of Dr. Pollard. I know a few of my friends, including.
They brought in a character that I think is a major character, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? Or
number one, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Number one.
And that she and Pike are the two that we're very interested in seeing from the Enterprise. But one thing that Aaron and I kind of noticed, and I thought it's just it's like, oh, Star Trek, there you go again. Is when he says, hey, Stamets says, Tilly, why don't you sing your favorite song? And I'll bet you every single Star Trek nerd out there, like myself, knew that she was going to sing a song that we all know from, 20th century Earth.
Yeah.
Popular. She wasn't going to sing on opera. She wasn't going to sing some new Andorian thing from 2250.
Mm-hmm.
She was going to sing some song that we're all going to say, hey, I know that song.
Did that bother you?
Yeah, well, because, well, think about it. What if I say, hey, Aaron, why don't you sing your favorite song? And he starts singing some song from 1739. He goes, oh, like, I give him a glance and start singing along with him like it's my favorite song, too. Come on, man. Not realistic.
Yeah, that's great. That's a little cheesy, and that's where the writing is a little corny sometimes,
Yeah. Well, I also think it's lazy.
Yeah, but it's not that lazy, guys, because there's other jewels they're dropping. Like I'm pointing out, there's little things that they're talking about that they're trying to expand on really large concepts or untouched concepts. So I'm not going to say it's lazy so much. It's just cheesy, and it's like corny. It's like corny. It's a little corny sometimes,
Well, the reason why I say lazy is there comes a point where you edit what you're putting in, and you have all this good stuff, and you go, you know what? We really shouldn't go to Bowie. We really shouldn't do that. We haven't established any art, any music. Yeah, and it's on the nose. But they don't take that step back to edit themselves. That's why I say that was a bit lazy.
There was a point where one of the characters, and I think her name is Tignataro, Denise Reno.
She plays Jet Reno.
Yeah, Jet Reno. I like her.
I'm going to cosplay her at the next convention.
She's pretty awesome, I think. She delivers her lines really naturally. I like her as an actress.
My only note for her is if she keeps being so aggressive and so
combative.
Combative is a good word. It's gonna wear her down. There's got to be a little bit of balance given to her. But she's trying to find her spot on the ship and earn her respect as a woman, and what she does. And they talk down to her, like when she said, I rigged the artery to, She's like, well, I thought you were a fucking mechanic, not a biologist or something. And she said, yeah, I fucking read. So she's earning her spot. She's trying to, make sure that she gets her respect. But I wanted to make a reference to what Ryan was talking about, because there was a scene where she's basically says she was in a Prince video or something, right?
Yeah.
She felt like she was. So I was thinking to myself, another pop culture reference, which I thought was corny.
Yeah. Well, Jarrod made a very good point to me when we just started, and maybe Ryan can finish up after and comment to Jarrod. Jarrod, talk about how you thought that Orville and Discovery had kind of swapped, and they were trying to do some of the things that maybe Orville had done last year.
Yeah.
And this is kind of in that vein, right?
It's very much, and they both are stealing from season one of each other.
Right.
Yeah.
For those of you that watch the Orville this season, we had a Lieutenant Tyler who was surgically altered to look like the rest of the crew and infiltrate. And I was like, great, you couldn't even change the name of the character. It had to even be the same name. I think this is Discovery trying to have more of that humor element.
Yeah.
And
I see it.
There is nothing that will age this show faster than a pop.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. That's why I'm talking about it. The Prince reference goes along the lines of what Ryan was saying. I didn't, of course you're going to pick the cheesy song that everybody was going to sing along to. And it's like those kind of small, little, subtle, like bends on the regular traditions, or at least trying to be funny. I think they're too dated.
And I think this Cirroc is 100% right, that the writers need to be very aware how much they're focusing on Spock and TOS characters, because the biggest slap in the face, I think, in all of Star Trek history was the finale of Enterprise, where they sidelined the entire cast in favor of Riker and Troy.
Yeah.
And I think you need to let this cast be its own thing.
Let them define themselves, and they don't need the help of. It's like to me, it's like they're reaching to pull in as broad a Star Trek based fan following as they can, and they don't have to really do that. They could just go and do whatever they want to do, and they don't have to make 1,000 different references, tie-ins, and this reminds you of that episode, this reminds you of that episode, and steal here, steal there. It's like listening. It's like listening to a remix of a song that you already know, and it's not an original beat. You already heard the beat before.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, if they just bring Michael Chiklis in, I think that'll solve all the problems.
I think that's the answer.
You barely got that one in, man.
Captain Nog and Michael Chiklis will save the new show.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, to that point. Michael Chiklis would. I do think we are running out of time here, and I mean it is pandering to the audience when they do songs like that. But they're doing it to be cute. They do it because they know we like it. It's less authentic, but I think they can.
We don't.
I can tell them, to their credit, still like Ryan was saying. I think it was a complete episode, and almost a standalone episode, the last one, and it was pretty awesome. And I mean, it was almost like you didn't really have to know too much, and you could sit there and watch that episode as a standalone almost. And
by the way, we don't even
pretty good to their credit.
Saru. By the way, Saru is now going to be superhuman or super Kelpian Saru,
or will be he corrupted by power?
I have a prediction.
Let's hear it.
We don't know the race that is subjugating his people, the one that comes and gets them.
Yeah,
I wonder if they are Kelpians who have had their ganglia fall off, and that they're only taking the ones who are nearing maturity, as it was.
You heard it here first. That's a very good theory. That's a really interesting theory.
I think he's going to be a part of the race of the Red Angel race, whatever the Red Angel people are that saved these people. I think they're going to find out that he's a Red Angel.
I bet not. Well, I think that's about all the time we have. There's so much more to talk about with this particular episode. It's too bad we're out of time, because it had so much for us. It had references. It had, Tilly getting a drill in her head. It had Saru going through Kelpian adolescence, and that's a really good theory, Jarrod. That's really solid. I think that could be it. And if so, that would be great. It's got characters growing. We got Lieutenant Non, who I really like, the new Barzan lady over there. We've got what's his name? Linus. I call him Linus the Sinus, who's a Saurian. We finally heard his voice, a little bit of development there. But I think that's about it for this week. But I think we ended on a high note with Jared's theory.
I think so.
And also a shout out to the chief engineer on the Enterprise before Scotty, who was named this episode.
Yeah, what was his name?
Louvier.
Louvier, that's right, a French name. And then he makes a joke like, I don't think I'll ever have an engineer that loves his ship that much. That's a joke to a reference.
Definitely won't be a Scot.
I actually found out that Louvier's last name is LaCroix. So Louvier.
Yeah, definitely related to LaCroix somehow.
Yeah, Louvier LaCroix.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Please, if you enjoyed the show, and even if you didn't enjoy the show, go to our Patreon account, patreon.com/the7th-rule with the 7th. Check out our YouTube channel, The 7th Rule Podcast. Check us out on Facebook, Support us, like us, share us, ask us questions, design our Facebook and YouTube banners, buy us Funyuns, whatever you got, we'll take
Or
it.
more LaCroix drinks. Send them. Ryan will put his address up on the website.
All right, guys. Well, for super producer Jarrod Cooper, for Aron Eisenberg, Cirroc Lofton, I'm Ryan T. Husk, and always remember the 7th rule.
Odyssey. Dare to wonder.